Hey guys, Spirit of the Lie here. The massive April patch is out today, and while I already covered the balance changes for the existing civilizations in a patch preview video, I also happen to get a couple days early preview access to put together an introduction to the 5 new Chinese region DLC civilizations. While they aren't being released and playable yet, and I heard officially are coming out on May 6th, we can at least take an early look at their tech trees, bonuses, and unique units in the scenario editor, where we'll be taking a look at all 5 in this jam-packed video. Of the 5, 2 could really be categorized as more steppe nomad themed, with then the other 3 going in a pretty new direction, representing the Three Kingdoms period of China. As an overall impression, they went big on this DLC, and it's even more new stuff than the Conquerors expansion introduced, especially when you factor in all the elite unit and castle graphic overhauls, but it also feels like every new civ has at least 3 or 4 completely brand new units that players have never used before. So let's get going. To start off, we should quickly touch on the regional units being picked up by existing civilizations, some of which are available to the new civs as well. First off, the Chinese are staying as a civ in the game, basically unchanged. The elite Chukanu is having rocketry built into the elite upgrade, and they're losing camels, but it's nothing too extreme. All 3 of the Chinese, Koreans, and Vietnamese are then picking up the new regional Fire Lancer, and Chinese and Koreans are also picking up rocket carts. This is happening even if you don't own the DLC. To start with the Fire Lancer, they're a barracks unit that has a one-off charge mechanic, with 3 shots doing 3 unblockable damage each, then turning into a generalist melee unit with a small anti-cavalry bonus and comparable stats to a longsword. The downside is they take bonus damage from the swordsman line, much like Eagle Warriors, though it doesn't replace anything. It's just a new, mildly anti-cavalry unit with a one-off advantage of some range. The other new regional unit coming to Chinese and Koreans is the Rocket Cart, which replaces the Mangonel for those civs and 2 of the new ones. It does its damage in a slightly different way, firing more projectiles with lower damage each, but has a similar sort of damage profile and blast area. It's not quite a reskin, and each has situations it feels like it may outperform, especially the closer you look at bonus damage, but perform a similar sort of anti-crossbow or mass infantry role. Chinese are also picking up a new regional cannon galleon called the Lu Chuan, which is shared with 4 of the 5 new civilizations. It can perform some of the shore bombardment role, but against other ships, switches to an arrow mode and can at least handle a similar number of galleons. Now though, let's get to the new civilizations that you're here for. The first is the Jurchens, who focus on cavalry and gunpowder in a big way. Their bonuses are first that the meat on animals they're collecting from doesn't decay, as a tiny early game bonus for the most part, and is probably most useful for milling deer or the new wild chickens without them running away from your villagers. Their mounted units and fire lancers then attack 20% faster, starting in Feudal Age, so the Dark Age Scout isn't affected, but a Scout Rush seems pretty decent, and should also affect cavalry archers as well. Notably, none of the 5 new civs have the Nightline, and in this case, we have more of a Steppe Lancer and Light Cavalry civilization with a unique cavalry unit as well. Their third bonus is Siege Engineers is moved to the Castle Age, helped out by an accompanying bonus reducing the 600 wood cost of that by 75%, as well as discounting fortification upgrades like Masonry, Fortified Walls, Keep, etc. Their quirkiest bonus is then that their units take half damage from friendly fire, which is nice for their rocket carts and one of their unique units called the Grenadier. This is trained in Castle Age at the archery range and is very squishy, but deals area explosions thrown pretty inaccurately. The idea is obviously they're able to throw them into groups of units and deal damage to both your own and your opponents, but more to your opponent in the long run. The other unique unit at the castle is the Iron Pagoda, which is not a Steppe Lancer upgrade as I speculated from the early screenshots. In addition to just being your sole heavy cavalry option considering you're missing knights, their special ability is they negate 1 incoming melee attack, similar to a Shravamsh rider dodging the first few incoming arrows, though in this case it's just the first 1 melee attack negated instead of several arrows, but it's the same idea. Their first unique tech is then defensive in nature, with castles, towers, and town centers regenerating 500 HP per minute, without costing stone to repair those castles by the way. And the second unique tech pumps up your gunpowder units by giving a delayed explosion after each shot, plus a few of your gunpowder units will explode when defeated, slightly damaging adjacent enemies. As for the tech tree, they basically lack the swordsman line, but other than that, shape up to have good if unorthodox cavalry, a nice variety of siege, great defenses, and overall just seem to have a lot to play around with. The lack of Arbalester, Longsword, and the Nightline entirely give you some gaps to play around, and could be a little tricky the first few times you play them, as you have to embrace some new units to fill those roles. The criticism that a lot of AoE2 civs fall into being either a crossbow or knight civ definitely doesn't apply here, but the fact they have a good scout and step lancer line is enough to have something familiar amid all the new units. Next up, let's take a look at the second new civilization, the Khitans, which are an infantry and cavalry civilization. Their bonuses start pretty wild, with a brand new replacement for farms called the pasture. It costs 100 wood and starts with 315 food, though like a farm, you can upgrade that with farm techs to give it more starting animals and more total food, up to over 900. As you can see, they have animals they gather from instead of regular farming, and can be worked by 2 villagers at the same time. Maybe most significantly, the central yurt is the drop-off point, so you don't need to place them around mills, which adds some flexibility. Their second bonus makes their shepherds and herders collect 10% extra food, so they collect faster from sheep, and the pasture herders end up in Dark Age at around 20 food per minute, which is not far off a farmer's work rate. Personally, I like that the amount of food left on it is reflected by the number of animals on the pasture before you need to refresh it, and overall I think it makes the civ very unique visually. I kinda want this for Mongols and Huns now, to be honest. Their next bonus is the effect of melee upgrades are doubled, a bit like the Romans getting double armor, and Khitans similarly missed the final attack upgrade at the blacksmith. Basically, you get +2 attack in feudal and +4 in castle age for your infantry and cavalry, but end up the same in imperial. Their next bonus is trash units train and upgrade faster, making the light cavalry line even more potent, with then the heavy cavalry archer being available in castle age for half the cost. They are getting those without bracer and Parthian tactics until Imperial Age, but it's still an interesting option with more HP, attack, melee armor, and a faster training time. Their overall tech tree is then pretty open in the mid-game in general, but lacking Arbalester, Halberdier, and the Knight line again, this time though adding in camels. For an infantry and cavalry civ to also push the cavalry archer makes them feel very flexible, and again have the new Fire Lancer and Rocket Cart to play around with. They then have 2 unique units. The first is an infantry from the castle, which hits for pretty decent damage, but then adds in an after effect of bleeding damage that ignores armor, and here you can see enemy HP melting away. Against high armor targets, that'll have a particularly outsized effect. The unit itself also has pretty good armor, and I expect it to be cost effective against most melee units. Their other unique unit is at the siege workshop called the Mounted Trebuchet, with 10 range and a moderate 30 damage, but leaves a lingering fire behind every shot that deals some extra damage, which is starting to be a theme of their unique units. It doesn't have anywhere near the same area damage of a rocket cart, for example, but has longer range, and feels more like the bombard cannon replacement without requiring chemistry. The unique techs are first lamellar armor, which lets infantry and skirmishers reflect some incoming melee damage back against enemies, and the other tech lets their cavalry regenerate about 2 HP per second, but only while in combat. The healing stops as soon as they disengage, which is an interesting take on healing in the game that we haven't seen before. The team bonus then finishes off by giving infantry +2 attack against ranged units. Overall, the civ feels very strong to me, with I assume a good cavalry archer mid-game play, lots to help out infantry, including a pretty high damage unique unit, plus hard-hitting and self-healing cavalry in the late game. Khitans are all about dealing lots and lots of damage, and the vibe of a dangerous step lancer civilization is coming through with this one. At the same time, they have some contrast with the Jurchens, with Khitans going heavily into the infantry and cavalry archer aspects, whereas Jurchens had more of an emphasis on gunpowder and siege. So those are the 2 northern steppe cavalry semi-nomad civilizations, with the next 3 having a separate theme entirely, being the 3 kingdoms of China in the 200s AD. First off, we have to address the elephant in the room, which is that all 3 bring a unique hero unit at the castle, which might be controversial in the fanbase as a bit of a gimmick. Things to keep in mind are that these are trainable in the Imperial Age only, and they're also quite expensive at 500 food and gold, and have a limit of 1 at a time. But yes, they are heroes coming to ranked, have an aura effect, and 400 HP and up. They're not essential to playing any of the 3 kingdom civs, but is a direction the main game hasn't gone in before, maybe foreshadowed a bit by the Polemarch unit in Battle for Greece. Something else to note about these 3 is they have their own unique replacement for the Knight and the Lu Chuan to replace the Cannon Galleon, but not the Fire Lancer and Rocket Cart, or any gunpowder for that matter, as these are pre-gunpowder civilizations. The first of the 3 kingdom civs is the Shu, which are an archer and siege civilization. Their bonuses are first that lumberjacks generate 1 food for every 10 wood they chop, as an eco bonus throughout the game. The next is archer techs at the range and blacksmith are cheaper, so obviously archers and crossbows is heavily incentivized, with then having naturally fully upgraded arbalesters. The third bonus is siege units move faster, and their siege workshop then has two unusual units in addition to the ram and onager line. The first is the war chariot, which is your scorpion replacement and has two different firing modes. The first is focus fire, which acts a bit like a Chukanu/scorpion hybrid and is great for focusing down a couple of units bunched up together. The other mode is barrage, which sprays damage all over the place, with each arrow ultimately doing similar damage to an arbalester. It is interesting to have both good archers and a siege unit that seems to fill a bit of an archer role, but I guess the argument is you have some choice in which range unit you prefer, and this one will do better against skirmishers. The other new siege unit is the Traction Trebuchet, which is at the Siege Workshop and replaces the regular Trebuchet for the Three Kingdoms civs. It's a lower damage and slightly shorter range version, but doesn't require castles or setting up to fire, while still being anti-building enough. Not having to make trebuchets then frees up your castle to train the unique unit, the White Feather Guard, which at first glance doesn't have great stats, but adds it an extra ability to slow down units they hit by about 15%. And you can see some synergy with an archer civ being able to snare enemy units. As for unique techs, the first is that Spearline units and White Feather Guards gain 1 max HP for every 2 similar units next to them, so they toughen up in a large group with up to a max of 15% more health in groups larger than 30. Their other unique tech gives various units, including the archer line, extra projectiles. It's just 2 of them for arbalesters, doing 1 damage each, but gives some area damage, and again reinforces the civ as being all about blocking out the sun with a barrage of arrows, while your infantry pin the enemy down and tank damage. As for their tech tree, as you'd expect, the archers and infantry look pretty solid, but the cavalry are somewhat lacking, and notably they only have the first melee attack upgrade, again reinforcing archers in siege are supposed to be doing most of your damage. Remember, the Three Kingdoms civs also have a new regional cavalry unit at the stable, which is called a Hai Guang. It's a lot like the knight, with a little less HP, more attack, more armor, and a slightly cheaper cost. I'm sure they could have just gotten knights and the balance would be similar, but this gives a visual flavor to the Three Kingdoms civilizations and makes them a bit more unique. Speaking of which, their hero unit's special ability is that all friendly units within 10 tiles are healed 45 HP per minute. He has 425 HP himself, so he's a bit of a tank, but given his aura effect, keeping him a bit safer in the back of your army seems prudent. So that's the Shu at a glance, which are all about archers in siege, and especially with a unique tech, seem designed to overcome even high pierce armor enemies with a hailstorm of arrows. Next though, let's move on to the Wei. Of the Three Kingdoms civs, Shu were clearly the archer, and now this is the cavalry civilization, though not quite in the nomad steppe lancer motif of the first 2 civs we saw, and this time is more about heavy cavalry. They have a pretty good economy bonus on paper, giving 1 free villager for every camp tech you research. Notably, they are missing 2 of those, but that's still 8 free villagers throughout the game in theory. It certainly makes the gold mining and stone mining techs more interesting and feudal, but even with just double bit axe and horse collar is at least 2 free villagers pretty early. Their other bonuses are then extra HP on their Nightline replacement and cheaper versions of the Three Kingdoms Trebuchet Workshop unit. They then have a unique archery range unit called the Xianbei Raider, which have low attack, but again a charge attack of multiple arrows to start, while also being pretty quick, so are best set up to raid or deal with infantry. The unique unit is in the Tiger Cavalry, which is a bit stronger, more arrow-resistant version of Knights for a higher gold cost, but gains +1 attack and +10 HP for every unit it defeats up to a maximum of 4. That might make them snowbally against archers or skirmishers, and unfortunately might give the incentive to sometimes delete your units against them. The way it differentiates itself from the Hai Guang at the stable is the Hai Guang has 4 melee armor by default, while the elite Tiger Cavalry has 0 melee armor and 5 pierce armor. So it's really a situation where the one at the stable has your anti-melee and the castle has your anti-pierce unit specialist. The unique techs are then that military units passively produce food on the order of 1 food per unit per minute, and the other then gives mounted units +4 melee armor, though you are lacking plate barding armor. So your hussars, for example, end with +6/+2, further pushing Tiger Cavalry at the castle as your archer counter, and their team bonus gives cavalry an extra +2 attack against siege weapons. Overall, I expect the Xianbei Raider and Heavy Cavalry to be quite strong, especially together, and as you might predict, their archery range and barracks are otherwise fairly lacking, missing the last armor upgrade for infantry in addition to cavalry. Naturally then, to round this all out, the final Three Kingdoms civ to follow up the archer and cavalry civs is the Wu, with an infantry and naval focus. Their first bonus is their military production buildings and docks give an instant 65 food when built. I'm not sure why it's that specific number, but it sounds very good on Nomad or for scout rushing. Their next bonus then allows infantry to regenerate HP with pretty generous numbers, especially the 30 HP in Imperial Age, so infantry is strongly pushed. You then have +2 attack on their knight replacement, the High Guai in Imperial Age, as well as the Jurchens swordsman. This is a unique unit at their barracks, with 5 base Pierce armor in Castle Age. It doesn't upgrade from there beyond the +2 attack in Imperial from a Civ bonus, but as it takes damage, it gets faster and increases its attack, while losing armor after it drops the first third of its HP. It's a very quirky unit, but at least gives you something anti-archer at the barracks, doubling down again on the infantry motif. Their last bonus is Careening and Dry Dock are nearly free and available in Age Early, giving you faster and more heavily armored ships if you remember to grab those techs. And their team bonus is that their houses are built in half the usual time. As for their unique units, besides the Jurchens swordsman as an anti-archer choice, you also have the fire archer at the castle. This has 2 types of shots. The first is a regular one that fires 3 full-strength arrows. The other is an extra long-range attack against buildings specifically, which deals not just bonus damage, but some additional burning damage for the next few seconds after you get a unique tech. This is Mayan Obsidian Arrows version 2, while also being pretty good against infantry. In addition to the unique tech improving fire archers against buildings, the other lets traction trebs at the Siege Workshop and your cannon galleon replacement fire extra projectiles. Between their infantry, unique unit, and unique techs, I get the sense this is your anti-building civilization, and between the multiple arrows and projectiles from your siege in the late game, maybe steps on the toes of the shoe a little bit, pun intended. Their hero for his part then increases the speed of nearby units by 15%, which brings us to the end of the 5 new civilizations. Those again are the Jurchens and Khitans as the light cavalry and steppe lancer civs, with Jurchens having more of a gunpowder and Khitans being more of an infantry, high attack, and bleeding damage focused civ. The 3 kingdom civs then split nicely into the 3 basic unit types. The Shu have the archer emphasis, with mass numbers of arrows, Wei are the high HP and armored cavalry specialists, and then finally the Wu have the self-healing infantry and are the best naval civ. It's a lot to take in, and this easily could have been 2 different DLCs. Officially, all that happened today is the April patch went live, while the new DLCs aren't out until May 6th, but I thought I'd give you guys a first look to try to help make sense of it all. For the next few videos, I'm looking at focusing on mostly things for the existing civilizations, as the DLC civs aren't playable yet, but once May gets closer, there's a ton to dig into that we've really only skimmed so far, and I'm excited for that. Big thanks to James, Jared2142, Niels, Samantha, Shawarma Rider, Steven, Woodruff, and everyone else on Patreon for their awesome support. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.